Today's video is sponsored by Sakurako and Tokyo Treat. More on them later. Hey, it's this series again. I look at the Smash Wiki, painstakingly scroll to the bottom of the page, and let people from the past do my work for me. You get the drill by now. Today's video starts with Toon Link and ends with Mega Man. So let's have a little fun. Starting off is another animation change when carrying an item, though this one is more subtle. Basically, when Toon Link is carrying an item, his facial expressions will change to his Smash 4 versions. See how normally he just keeps his serious face for most of the idle animation, but here he sorta does a ooh look. And continuing with previously seen types of trivia, here's a fun discrepancy between his trailer and his current version. Actually, let me just play some of the footage for you and see if you can guess what it is. It's the sound of his sword attacks. In the trailer, they're kinda just normal sword hitting sounds. But in the final version of the game, we get... Yep, the wet noodle. You know, I'll take this as an opportunity to voice my opinion on the matter, but I gotta say, this totally turned me off playing this character when the game first came out. And to this day, I still think the sound effect is deeply unsatisfying. Like when the game first came out, I really wanted to play Toon Link, but I found the sound effects so incredibly unsatisfying that I just opted to stick to Young Link. I've since gotten over that amount of disdain, but I still don't like it. I do admit, yeah, it's a very unique sound within Smash, but I also just feel like it doesn't really work for Toon Link. In The Wind Waker, the sound effects for your swords are really sharp, and there's a certain bang sound for particularly powerful effects. Like, I have zero recollection of anything sounding noodly. If they wanted to stylize his sound effects in Smash, they honestly could have just based it around these sounds, or just straight up used these sounds, and it would have worked out perfectly, I think at least. I've heard that that's what they tried to do, but you could have fooled me. This Twitter poll tells me that the majority of people either like it or don't care, according to the demographic of people who follow me on Twitter, but whatever, I still strongly hold that opinion. And lastly for Toon Link, on a more positive note, the wiki mentions how his up taunt, as well as one of his victory screens, has him playing the Wind Requiem from his base game. He puts more motion into it here, but you can clearly see him doing the up, left, and then right movements that are in the game. It makes perfect sense, this is the song that you're probably going to use the most in the game, so having this be the song that they chose for his taunt makes sense. I mostly point this out because I love Zelda and love talking about it. Also, it looks more weird in the victory screen version. It almost seems like he's going sideways back and forth rather than starting upwards, but I think that's just a camera angle making it look different, and that his movements actually are him doing the upwards motion at the start. I point that out because I feel like if I didn't, I'd get comments telling me that I'm wrong about this and that I'm cringe and downvoted, etc. Anyways, before I move on to Wolf, I'd like to thank today's video sponsors Sakurako and Tokyo Treat. Sakurako and Tokyo Treat are a snack box service that ships authentic, Japanese snacks right to your door, with each month coming with a unique theme. Sakurako is more of an artisan type snack box, with a lot of baked goods and such, you know. On top of that, they also include bags of tea, as well as a delightful piece of tableware, this month being a cute little dish. Whereas Tokyo Treat has more of the limited edition seasonal snacks, the kinds that are popular in Japan. Things like unique Kit Kat flavors, or a beverage, or some kind of instant noodles, and many other lovely snacks. Though as lovely as the snacks are, there's a pretty good chance you'll pick one up and not know what on earth it is. And just for that, each box comes with its own little booklet that goes over tons of details about its contents. It'll go over the box's theme, and the culture behind it, give information on the people who make the snacks, and very importantly, it'll detail each individual treat, giving it a name, description, and telling you important information about what's inside of the snack, like allergens, or whether or not it's vegetarian friendly, which I really appreciate. So even if you're not familiar with the Japanese culture, this is an extremely easy and extremely tasty way to get exposed to it. For this month's themes, Sakurako has Ibaraki Harvest. Ibaraki is a major agricultural center in Japan, and it'll provide a variety of flavors, like chestnut, or sweet potato, or blueberry. I tried this blueberry manju one and it was absolutely divine. And for Tokyo Treat's theme, it's, as you might expect, Spooktacular Snackin', a Halloween-based theme. In it, you'll find tons of exclusive, limited edition, spooky Japanese snacks, which includes a sweet potato Kit Kat and the infamous Tokyo Layer loaf returns, with the flavor being maple pumpkin. It's a great way to celebrate Halloween with a sense of familiarity, yet still very different and delicious. So whether you want a harvest-based artisan experience or a more Halloween-based snack experience, or both, click the links in the description for $5 off for your first box using my code PKBEATS in all caps. The themes in today's videos are available up until the 15th of October, so be sure to order soon if you want those treats. Oh, and Tokyo Treat specifically has a free giveaway for Halloween where you can win prizes and even a free Tokyo Treat box. The link to that is also in the description below. And with that, thank you Sakura and Tokyo Treat for sponsoring today's video. Alright, let's talk about Wolf now. First up, a prompt mentions how, for early game footage, there's a few inconsistencies with what his in-game model looks like, compared to the model used in his official render. I'll just list them all off. In this part of the trailer, the soles of his boots are red, but are blue in the official render and finished game, as well as other parts of the trailers. And the straps behind his right shin guards were white, even though they're all black in his render. And in some places, his jacket and gloves are a much darker purple than they are now. This one's a bit harder to pinpoint due to how lighting and stuff can affect it, but I think I see it. And these inconsistencies can be found in other character trailers like Fox's, or Mewtwo's, or Corrin's, and so on. Though it's not in all of the trailers, like we can see with Toon Link's where his boots are generally fine. And we can even see some of these inconsistencies in some of his character page screenshots on the official site. Like right here, you can clearly see the red boot soles. And you can very faintly point out the white straps here, and so on and so forth. Also, there's a prompt that points out how his render having black straps is also wrong compared to the current in-game version, where his shin guard straps are now the same purple as his jacket and gloves. Now, you might be wondering, like, why does Wolf have so many inconsistencies throughout his appearance in trailers and whatnot? Like, inconsistencies aren't unheard of for other characters, we've gone over quite a few on the channel and one for Toon Link earlier today, but Wolf feels like he has just a lot more. Like they kept fine-tuning him throughout the development more than other characters. Well, funny enough, the wiki also mentions that, while Wolf's design here is based on his appearance in Star Fox Zero, the outfit is almost entirely original. This is most likely because the only times Wolf has ever appeared in Star Fox Zero was through an in-game headshot when he's speaking. You know, the whole Zoom meeting call perspective, where Wolf easily could have been in his undies here and no one would have been any the wiser. Unfortunately, they didn't go with the underwear idea, but considering they had to make it from scratch, it makes a lot of sense that there will be this many changes throughout development, relative to other characters, which I think is pretty interesting to know. And we got a lot more Wolf content to talk about, with next being how the visual effects for all of his claw-based attacks show only 3 slash trails, even though Wolf is actually attacking with 4 fingers. I mean, sometimes it's hard to tell if he's supposed to be using his thumb in the attack or not, but we can definitely tell he's meant to be using his 4 main fingers. Yeah, that's more of a nitpick than anything else, but hey, nitpicks count as trivia if you haven't picked up on that by now. Next, let's mention how for this version of Wolf, if you look under his eye patch, which I did with the help of ZekFox, thank you very much, you can see that it looks like his eyelid is closed. I say looks like, in reality it's just the eye but with no actual texture, so it just uses the body texture loosely, which I guess ends up appearing like an eyelid, but probably isn't. This is contrary to what the wiki says, that the eye is an empty socket, which it really isn't, but it is still kinda blank, I guess. However, for the Brawl version, looking through his cybernetic eye patch shows that he actually has a fully functional eye. Apparently something similar happens in Star Fox Assault if you try to look under Wolf's eye patch there. Not sure if that's an intentional reference or just a coincidence, but it's pretty funny. Again, I would like to thank ZekFox for getting those model images for me, link to their Twitter in the description. Oh, and also speaking of ZekFox, they had pointed out how apparently the last hit of Wolf's jab in his trailer looked way different than the current version. Mostly the positioning of the head and how the body is angled, which I didn't notice. So there's another inconsistency to add to the growing pile. Next, when Wolf does his forward rolling tech, his ankle gets a little bit messed up. As you can see here, it's facing the complete wrong way. It ends up getting fixed by the time the animation is over, I mean obviously, but man, looking at the whole thing, it seems to start once Wolf first gets up from the ground, where he twists the ever-loving hell out of it. Like, I mean, is it really a tech if you have to break your own ankles to do it? Oh, and apparently this isn't just found in the forward tech, but can also be found in his victory screen animation where he does a roundhouse kick at the end. It's not the leg kicking that gets broken, but the one standing. And it only happens for one frame, right here before it goes back to normal. I think this one is hysterical. It just looks at you for a single frame. I don't know. I don't even know why that happens, but that's super funny. Speaking of Wolf disfiguring himself, it's mentioned how he'll look a bit weird if you walk off a platform or ledge with his left foot as the leading one. It's primarily the left arm that gets a bit messed up. This one's a bit harder to pinpoint than the last examples, but you can see it's kinda weird looking, and then just suddenly snaps back into position in one frame after a bit of time. And this doesn't seem to happen if he walks off the ledge with his right foot leading. You know, I doubt Wolf is the only one with plenty of weird animation quirks like these, but he certainly has a lot of them written down on his wiki, so hey, I'll talk about it. Lastly for Wolf, it's mentioned how his blaster will have a different effect play out if Fox is in the match. Normally the effect of a successful hit with the blaster just sorta looks like this, loads of electric effects and whatnot. This is true for hitting a player, an item, or a wall. However, if Fox is in the match, then this hit effect will have some black smoke appear as well. Again, be it hitting a player, an item, or just the wall. This is because Fox's laser itself always has this black smoke effect appear upon successful hit, so my guess is that Wolf's is meant to have this appear normally, but some code spaghetti means that it can only load it in when Fox is around too, or maybe it was never meant to be there for Wolf, but again, code spaghetti happens. And in case you're wondering, no, this does not happen for Falco's laser. His stays without any smoke. For some mandatory testing, if Fox loses his last stock in a team battle, the black smoke effect will still be loaded for Wolf, because Fox is still loaded. On the flip side, if Fox gets KO'd in Squad Strike, he gets unloaded, meaning while the black smoke was there before, it goes away alongside Fox. These types of effects are always really interesting to me, since not only do I gotta wonder what exactly is going on that makes it happen, but also this has been known since, like, when the game first came out. Like, I definitely remember hearing about it within the first year of the game's release, yet they've never touched it. I'm actually kinda glad though, that's more content for me. And that's the Brawl veterans all finished up. But since we still got time, I'll touch on some of the Smash 4 folk. Starting with the Villager. It's mentioned how characters who get grabbed by his net have their models changed in order to fit inside, which looks a little bit terrifying. This is similar to how characters have their heads shrunk considerably when inside of Wario's mouth. And yes, this is hysterical. And also, I believe I didn't go over this in the video where I covered Wario in this series. I guess it just wasn't on the wiki or anything, so here it is here. Villagers is a bit different though, since it's not an all-encompassing effect. If the character is already small enough to fit inside the net, like surprisingly Wario is, their model will look fine when you zoom in. This doesn't happen for Wario's bite, since I imagine no one's head is small enough to naturally fit inside of it from my tests. That's also surprising, but I guess they're being safe than sorry here with the animations. So like here, for Mario, his model is all intact for the net, but for DK, he's been halved. And yeah, this is how it works for Isabelle too. Also, I didn't notice it with Ridley since he's kind of just a blob of messed up purple, but with DK, you can especially see that the model isn't like cut in half or anything, but rather the top half is just shrunk down to incredible amounts, which is actually way funnier. Strangely enough, I found that if I do the frame by frame thing while zoomed into the net, the character will return to their normal size, and when you zoom out, you can see them clipping out of the net, which is not normal. But when you advance frames outside of the net, that clipping disappears, and we can see that they return to being pruned to oblivion. So I guess they just don't want the frame by frame mode thing to see the character all shrunk up. It's really interesting. If anyone knows why that's how that works, feel free to leave comments down below. And lastly for today's video is Mega Man, who has a piece of trivia mentioning that he can actually walk with the assist trophy in his hand. This is done if you're using his walking neutral attack, which I guess is technically his side tilt, and you pick it up while doing this. This is because, you know, his neutral can be used while walking, which I guess gives it different properties. Once you stop walking, you'll just use the assist trophy as normal, but you can jump like this. Normally when you land, again you'll just use the assist trophy, but if you land while using his neutral air, which is once again the same as his neutral attack and walking variants, then he can land while still holding the assist trophy. And you might notice that you can't really turn around like this, but what you could do is just jump and use some special attack, up special being the best, to turn around. So long as you land using his neutral air, it'll work, which is actually a super sick tech, I think. Mega Man is one of 3 characters who can do this, the others being Min Min, whose jabs are basically just a normal neutral attack, you know, Min Min is just super unique in that regard, and Steve, who can walk with his neutral attack as well. I found this to be super easy with Min Min, like the movement was way more forgiving and even allowed you to turn around easily. Whereas I felt Steve was the harder of the bunch to control. It wasn't impossible to do the things I went over before, but it did feel less forgiving. Still pretty cool though. Anyhow, that'll be it for today's video. Also, you might notice that the stage background for today's video was Norfair. Yeah, I like to use stage backgrounds for whatever thing I'm thinking about at the time of testing. Usually it's a blue stage, because I like blue, or an ocean-like summery stage because I love summer, or a Zelda stage because I love Zelda. Guess there's a lot of overlap there, huh? And today's was Norfair because I've been watching a ton of Super Metroid speedruns lately, which I absolutely love. I don't usually choose Metroid-based stages because they're all kinda dark, which makes it a bit harder to visualize things, at least pleasantly, but I don't know, I guess I just felt like it today. What's your guys' favorite stages, like aesthetically? You know, I've had the thought of ranking all of the stages based on aesthetic alone, but I'm not sure how interesting that would be. It'd also probably be long, cause there's a few stages in this game, as you might know, but... Anyways, I'd like to once again thank Sakurako and Tokyo Treat for sponsoring today's video, and as usual, I'd like to thank my lovely patrons, Parade Dino, Raighne, Skully, Sylvian700, Burbo, SickanDaDank, and everyone else for their support. Stay casual, and I'll see y'all later.